گفتی که میبوسم تو را گفتم تمنا میکنم گفتی اگر بیند کسی گفتم که آشا میکنم گفتی که
Before the war in 1979, and according to UNESCO sources, the literacy rate in Afghanistan was 15%, one of the lowest in the world. Because of the war, the rate has decreased year after year. The education network has been literally blasted, especially in the rural areas. 3.5 million Afghans have taken refuge in Pakistan and in Iran. Children and teenagers make up an important part of this population. Of course, there are elementary schools in the refugee camps, but beyond this standard, the admission to secondary or technical schools is very limited. Following the institution of a new regime in Afghanistan, part of the refugees decided to go back to their country. According to the UNHCR, 1.5 million Afghan refugees from Pakistan and Iran returned to their country in 1992. Although there is not yet any political stability, although there are still millions of mice in their fields, the Afghan refugees do hope to go home.
ASEAN provides on-the-job training to unskilled or semi-skilled young Afghans in 26 available trades, as for example radio repairing, auto mechanic, clothing, handicrafts.
A Belgian NGO, Solidarité Afghanistan SOSPG, initiated its humanitarian aid to Afghan refugees in Pakistan in 1985, and it is implementing the project. Its main institutional partners are the Pakistani Ministry of Afghan Affairs and the miscellaneous political parties from the Afghan resistance. The main fund suppliers of the project are currently the CEC and the Belgian government. Previously, it was also financed by the UNHCR. The project has three immediate objectives. One, to train young Afghan refugees in miscellaneous trade through apprenticeship. Two, to insert these young Afghans into income-generating activities. Three, to support the local activities of Afghan and Pakistani small business in the informal sector.
The group of beneficiaries is young Afghans aged 15 to 20 years from the refugees camps in Pakistan, including 25% candidates from vulnerable groups such as widows, orphans, and the disabled.
The project's policy with the beneficiaries called vulnerable groups, especially the disabled. The project policy is to increase the chances of handicapped people of gaining a professional training and entering the employment market. Neither a special nor an overprotective treatment for the disabled persons. They are admitted in apprenticeship just like the able ones. Yet we check two things before the start of the training. These persons must have received and completed a medical rehabilitation. In most cases, this consists of an artificial limb, for most of them were crippled in the war. We also see to it that they have economic motivations and are enterprising. As a matter of fact, the project consists in supporting an economic process, that of the informal sector and its small business, and not in generating a welfare system.
The project was launched in Peshawar, but today we have sub-offices and different camps in NWFP in Punjab and Pakistan. We have recently opened an office in Jalalabad inside Afghanistan because the refugees are moving now.
Where have you been trained as a mechanic? In Pakistan. I was a refugee there. I first set up a garage that I have now moved here in Afghanistan. Business is reviving here. In June '92, the project started a sub-office in Jalalabad, Nangarhar province of Afghanistan. This came as a result of the collapse of Najibullah's regime in Kabul during the month of April. As you know, a massive repatriation of Afghan refugees took place during the following months. Two reasons have prompted us to set up this sub-office in Afghanistan. First, we did want to work with the repatriated Afghans in their country. Second, we wanted to initiate support and development actions to the informal sector in Afghanistan. At present, professional trainings are badly needed in Afghanistan. During the war, many young people were unable to attend school regularly. We namely think of these young mujahideens, these young fighters who grew up during these years within what has been called the Kalashnikov culture, that is, a social environment of war. The present challenge is to redeploy these youth into civilian activities.
The selection of candidates takes place in the refugee camps in village through intensive interview and tests. Some candidates come here in our main office for application. Names of the selected apprentices are kept in the waiting list for gradual placement in workshops. Our target is to have permanently 800 returning apprentices per month. In order to keep the expected target, each graduated apprentices is immediately replaced by new candidates from the waiting lists. The selected apprentices are then placed in our local Pakistani or Afghani workshops for a certain period of time to learn the trade of their choice. The period of training range is from 7 to 17 months.
I work as placement officer. I visit the workshops where apprentices have been placed to assess the work progress of the apprentices and relationship with master.
Each placement officer has in charge of 70 apprentices to follow up. The placement officers are supervised by the placement advisors. As a field officer, I set up each month the planning to follow up their visits. A monthly stipend of $12 is given to apprentice to cover his transportation and food expenses. A certificate as well as a toolkit costing $60 is given to apprentice after completion of his training period. Against a single placement of the apprentice in his workshop, masters receive a toolkit costing $80. Masters in that way are the second group of beneficiaries of the project.
The project has been designed in such a way that the nationals of the receiving country can also take advantage of it. As a matter of fact, among the small workshops where young Afghan refugees are admitted, 50% are Pakistani, which is another way to support their development. Why have you agreed to train an apprentice from Solidarité Afghanistan, Belgium? As a Muslim, it's my duty to help the refugees. I have been running this business for 20 years, and I have already trained several apprentices in my career. We and the Afghans have much in common. What they learn today in Pakistan will help them tomorrow in Afghanistan to rebuild their country. The interest of an approach through apprenticeship is that the apprentices are placed in an actual economic environment, that of the informal sector, within a network where economic and social connections are formed. There they grow familiar with the market's demand, the consumers' buying habits, where to get the supply of raw material, and above all, they have to adjust their workmanship to the bazaar's technical environment. In short, several things that can hardly or cannot be learned in a formal or professional teaching system. One has to admit, however, that the way they gain technical skill is less systematic than in a formal educative system, such as, for example, a professional training center. Objectively, these are the shortcomings of the apprenticeship scheme. In fact, we have to remember that the first duty of the small entrepreneurs is not to be trainers as qualified teachers. Above all, they are economic performers of the informal sector. Moreover, and unfortunately, most of them are illiterate. The project is striving to offset these shortcomings in at least two trades, mechanics and radio television, for which instructors give theoretical lessons. This way, we combine formal education and apprenticeship alternately.
3 months after the date of the apprentice's graduation, our monitoring staff trace the ex-apprentices and collect detailed information about their employment status. Our monitoring identifies the graduate apprentices according to 3 categories of status. In one hand, the apprentices who are employed by their previous master or another masters. In other hand, the apprentices who open their own workshop as a micro entrepreneur. In other hand, we have an apprentices who are unemployed yet. Our employment rate of the graduate apprentices usually between 75 and 80%, which is quite successful.
आशिकान महरम राज़न अख़यार बेगो आशिकान महरम राज़न अख़यार बेगो